give the floor to Mr. Deng. Mr. Deng, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me extend my gratitude to people who has been on this chair before me, in particular a lady, a sister, a victims of injustice in faraway Eastern Asia that spoke with personal experience, knowing that personal experience sometimes is not comparisons with analysis. And when she spoke this morning, honestly, she touched me personally from her experience, the torture, the demonizations. But this is all what we as the victims, us folks like you, to be there for those whom are still crying for help. First, allowed me to thank you for invitation to address Geneva Summit for Human Rights, Tolerance, and Democracy. These are issues for the great importance to me as much as ever before. The time is ripe to end discriminations and persecutions, promote understandings and democracy throughout the world, especially in the troubled country like my native Sudan. In my country today, innocent people still suffer from half a decade of genocide, slavery, forced Islamizations, and Arabizations. And though we are supposedly at peace, this peace this legacy of evils still live on for far too many, far too often. Peace remains only a dream. My name is Simon Deng. I am from Southern Sudan, and I am a Shuluks by tribes. Most important, I'm a Christian by religions. For decades, people of Southern Sudan have been persecuted by the various radicals, jihadist regime in Khartoum. Twice, we have been victims of prolonged genocidal campaign by this Islamist regime seeking to destroy our peoples and our culture through murder and rape, enslavement, and forced conversion to Islam, Islamic faith, and Arab culture. First happened in 1955 until 1973. Again, from 1983 until 2005, what we often refer to as civil war brought death, destructions to my peoples. These wars were far from severe. They fit into the well-defined parents of Arab imprint, which seeks to destroy the indigenous African peoples from Sudan in whatever ways possible. During these years, over 3 million Southern Sudanese were killed. Millions more became refugees, and some parents is seen still in Darfur, but also in others less frequently discussed part of Sudan, including the Nuba Mountains, Bija in the east, Nubians in the north, still throughout southern as well. Indeed, the majority of population of Sudan considered as marginalized peoples. They are ruled by a small, powerful minority in Khartoum. And knowing that what I have to be saying, it touched something emotionally, I will ask the man on my right to finish half of the emotion things, which I don't want to go through it.
I am living proof of the many crimes and the dehumanizations that occur in Sudan. When I was a child, my village was raided by Arab troops, contracted to kill by the Khartoum regime. As we ran into the bush to escape, I watched as my best friends were shot dead, and the old and weak who were unable to run were burned alive in their huts. The survivors rebuilt our village and buried our dead, only to have the whole process repeated, over and over again. The same calculated atrocity happened across southern Sudan, and for many, many years. When continuing to live in my village became impossible, my parents moved us to the capital of the Upper Nile region of southern Sudan, the city of Malakal. There, at the age of 9, a neighbor asked if I would help him with his luggage. He told me to carry his bags onto a steamship on the Nile and to wait there until he returned. I waited, but he did not return. And soon the ship left the dock, and I, terrified, began screaming and crying. The neighbor then appeared out of nowhere and calmed me down by saying that since we had left the station already, we would have to wait until the end of the journey, when he would put me back on a ship to head back home. He promised it would be okay. Of course, this was a lie. When we arrived at our destination in the northern city of Kosti, it turned out that the neighbor had brought 3 other children with him on the same ship. We were all unloaded with him. The other children soon disappeared, probably handed off to someone else. I don't know. I was brought to the man's village in a suburb of Kosti. There, I was given to a family, his relatives, without any knowledge of the arrangement between them, and immediately put to work. After 3 miserable days, I asked them where my neighbor had gone, for he had promised he would return me to my loved ones back home. It was then I was told that I would not be going home, because according to them, I was given to them as a gift. A gift, ladies and gentlemen. When you look at me, do you see a gift? Do I look like an object or a commodity? I am a human being, a person, created in the image of God. This simple truth is denied by the jihadists and slave traders who continue to kidnap and enslave children in Sudan to this day. I don't like talking about my experience as a slave, but I do it because it is important for the world to know that such slavery does exist even today. I am grateful of the opportunity to be a voice for those who have no voice. Untold millions have suffered as I have suffered, and it is for them that I speak to you today. When I was a slave, I was unable to say the word no. All I could say was yes, yes, yes. I was the first one to wake up in the morning to fetch the first load of the day's water from the river, and the last to go to sleep at night. I had no bed. Like a normal human being, I was forced to sleep on the ground, among the animals. I was beaten time and time again, usually for no reason at all, even by the children of the family, younger than myself. I could not go to sleep until every last bit of heavy work had been performed. When you read, usually in history books or even the Bible, about the brutality of slavery, for me as a child it was reality. For me the pain and suffering was real. Miraculously for me, my enslavement ended after only a few years. Most are not so lucky. After a time, the family that enslaved me had moved from the suburbs into the city of Kosti, where the miracle of my freedom occurred. I was 12 and a half years old when I was sent to the store to pick something up for the family. By sheer coincidence, I ran into 3 Shilluk gentlemen bearing the same tribal markings on their foreheads which I bear now, but which at the time I did not yet have. I ran to them and told them who I was and the situation I was in. They told me that they knew someone from my village when I mentioned where I was from, who happened to be in Kosti, and that they would bring him to the same spot the next day to confirm that I was who I said I was. The next day we met, and instantly the man from my village recognized me, and tears began to flow from his eyes. He was crying because everyone had lost hope that I would ever return. When I disappeared, my father put up 10 cows as a reward. This was a very high price. They assumed, since no one had come forward to claim them, that I must be gone for good. Within a couple of weeks I was free at last and reunited with my loving family. When we talk about human rights abuses in Sudan, to me it doesn't even go far enough. We should be talking about the complete lack of human rights, and indeed the destruction of human life and the ongoing annihilation of human culture. Truly, the situation in most of southern Sudan and for most of all the marginalized peoples of Sudan is beyond comprehension. And to make matters worse, to this day no one has been held accountable. When the Comprehensive Peace Agreement was signed in 2005, like most people, I wasn't optimistic, despite my deep lack of trust towards Khartoum. And still, I remain optimistic. But nevertheless, I am nervous. I am troubled by the lack of full implementation and by the roadblocks and delays consistently put forward by the Khartoum regime. Why has no country or international body shown the guts to stop them from continually breaking the agreement? In the 5 years since the CPA was signed, the situation in southern Sudan has improved, but it still needs much more improvement. The extent to which there is any peace in southern Sudan, it is because of the promise of the CPA that the South will soon have the chance to vote on self-determination in the referendum scheduled for next year. Without this commitment, the South would still be as hopeless as ever. Therefore, without the full implementation of the CPA, all will be lost in no time, and the international community must continue to play a vital role in ensuring that the CPA remains in force. For the first time, the international community has much to be proud of in Sudan. But there is still so much work to be done. Without international pressure, the CPA would never have come into existence in the first place. International peacekeepers put their lives on the line in Sudan every day, and aid groups help many people, but still far too many are beyond their reach. Sudan still has more internally displaced people than any other country in the world. And though this fact surprises most people, there are more internally displaced people in southern Sudan than there are even in Darfur itself. We need much more engagement between the world and Sudan, and we need to constantly keep pressure on Khartoum to live up to their commitments and protect vulnerable communities. We live in a global community now, and Sudan must become a part of it. There are some voices now in the world, including even the Secretary General of the United Nations, that have stated that the South's impending vote for independence will be a dangerous thing for Sudan and the region. Truly, that is a backward view. Why consider upholding commitments to democracy and self-determination a bad thing? It may threaten the status quo, but the status quo is unacceptable. Such voices may believe that Southern secession is dangerous, but I believe the opposite is true. If the people of the South are somehow denied their promised right of self-determination, such anger will erupt that a return to war will be inevitable. The results would be catastrophic for Sudan and the region, and especially for the civilians there who, like myself, have already gone through so much.
Sudan stands at a crossroad. In one direction lie a tragedy past of genocide, slavery, and injustice, while in other lie a hopeful future of reconciliations, forgiveness, and democracy. I hope that with the help of international community, human rights organizations, peoples of goodwill, Sudan, probably independent Southern Sudan, will be able to walk into the future together in peace. Thank you.